Today, we are going to revolutionize your stars. Pluto is entering Aquarius. Attention, all Aquarians, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Gemini, Capricorn, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Virgo signs. You need to take your natal charts out because we're going to unpack this massive Pluto energy moving into a brand new sign, leaving Capricorn and going into Aquarius on January 20th, 2024. I'm Ev Zerverdakis, founder of Holistic Healing Astrology, and we are going to dive deep. We're going to cover what the meaning is of Aquarius, what the meaning is of Pluto, and we're going to unpack what happened in around the years of 1777 and about 20 years later to 1797, and compare in history what happened when Pluto was in Aquarius last. So Pluto has a different kind of an orbit, so it varies how long it stays in a sign. If you don't have a natal chart, you could get them online. You could order them from Holistic Healing Astrology. You just email us. We'll take care of you. We'll have my people get out to you. But we have a lot to uncover. And if you have any comments, put them below. If you have any questions, here in Holistic Healing Astrology, we coach, we mentor, we teach. If you want to learn about astrology or psychic development, all right? We're a one-stop shop here. So you're welcome to check out the websites, and we produce monthly newsletters that would go straight into your inbox. If you're interested, hop on the website and subscribe. We also have weekly blogs and everyday, daily TikToks, okay? So this is a continuation from the TikTok content to help people understand all about astrology and how this revolutionizing planet, Pluto, is going to go into Aquarius and what that's going to mean for you and your chart, okay? So we are going to look at, we're going to start with Pluto being in 0 degrees Aquarius. So that's going to affect all the fixed signs and all the air signs, okay? Because they work together and they're related to one another at 0 degrees. So I'm going to give this transit because what's happening now with these planets, Pluto going into Aquarius, is considered a transit, all right? So get your chart out and look for anything in your chart that has 0 to 2 degrees Aquarius to start with. That's a direct contact. Those of you that have fixed signs with planets, cusps, angles, or points in your chart that are between 0 and 1 or 2 degrees will be affected. They'll probably have some action or reactions in your chart. So make sure you look, and you have to look at the degrees. We're not just looking at the sign. We need to look at the sign, the house, and the degree. Then we're going to look at all the air signs because Aquarius is air. So any air signs that are on the angles, cusps of houses, and planets or points that are between 0 and 2 degrees, make note of that because that's where Pluto is going to influence your chart. So before I give you all the keywords, you're going to have to understand where it's affecting or possibly affecting you in your life. Now, remember that transits are possibilities, but if you get a lot of echoing through the chart, like it makes multiple contacts to your chart, Pluto, through aspects or going into certain houses, then you're probably going to feel it. And so I'm hoping that you'll be able to look on your chart and figure this out and follow along. Now we have to remember that it's not in 0 degrees. Pluto is not in 0 degrees Aquarius yet. It's in 29 degrees of Capricorn. So that means you have to find all your cardinal signs, which is Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, and see if you have any points, cusps, angles, planets in 28 to 29 degrees of those signs, and earth signs, which would be Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn again, okay? So if you have any of those numbers, this is like astrology bingo. If you have any of those numbers, pay attention. It's pretty much everybody on the planet, but this is really big. So before we get into all the keywords, let's look at history and see what happened back in, 200 something years ago in the 1700s, 1776. All right. Well, that was our Declaration of Independence. There was a revolution and there was a change in government. We became what? Free. All right. So remember these words because they really are key words for Aquarius. Also, the submarine was invented or created by David Bushnell. And Benjamin Franklin, who was a great inventor back at that time, invented bifocals. They invented circular saws in 1780. They invented the parachute in 1783, self-winding clocks. This was a big deal, okay? And then they invented the hot air balloon, steel rollers, and then they invented safety locks, right? A power loom to make fabric. So I'm checking my notes here online, and just to give you some idea, the steamboat, the guillotine in 1789. So they had the cotton gin, bicycles were invented in Scotland, a gas turbine, ambulance in 1792. And then they had preserving jars, even in medicine, smallpox vaccines. So, and besides, the electronics and, think back then, they didn't have telephone systems the way we have now. They didn't have electricity the way we have now, lights, and a lot of it was with candlelight. But that was a big revolutionary time where it changed humanity. So now, just look at the last 50 years and 20 years, even 5 years. How has technology changed? Amazingly. And we're just in the middle of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some key words on Aquarius. You need to understand the characteristics of Aquarius because this transformational planet is gonna, like a glacier, come in to that sign of Aquarius. Now, it did come in to Aquarius, Pluto, on March 23rd in 2023, and it stayed in there about 1 month. So we had a little bit of preview of it, and go back in your planner and try to remember what was going on in your life back then, because it's going to repeat in January. And then towards the end of January, towards the end of 2024, rather, Pluto will go back into Capricorn for the last time in over 200 years, and because it retrogrades, and then we'll go back into Aquarius and stay there for about 21 years. So remember, Pluto's cycle is 248 years, okay? Some keywords for Aquarius is, the first thing is the phrase, I reform. And they also know, I know. Aquarius is the sign of the know-it-all because they're highly intelligent, especially for the whole world. They just gather data that is super important worldwide, okay? And they're the rebels. They're original. They're involved with community, and they have lots of friends. These are generalizations. That's if you shine or your theme is in Aquarius. So we're going to look up some more keywords for you, just so you could see how this is going to affect your chart. And I have devised and created a labor of love that I will be publishing very shortly among my other books. So I created this so I could do better readings and have all the keywords at my fingertips. So you'll have to excuse me for looking at my notes, but in order to be accurate, I want to make sure that I have the proper notes in front of you and me. So they like friends. They like helping others. These are Aquarian people. Intellectual conversations because they're air signs. They like to see both sides, like a Gemini. They're great problem solvers. Feelings don't matter because they're very detached. They always need time alone to kind of recharge. They have the ability to perceive the future because Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, the planet that is like a satellite that pulls in information from the universe, okay? It has the ability to design and innovate. So all these inventions that I listed before, that's because it's Aquarius, you know, and mixing the ancient with the future, which is really big. It's also gender ambiguity. It's the universal thinker, okay? So the ruling planet of Aquarius is Uranus. It is a fixed sign. It's an air sign. It rules the legs and blood. Its gem is aquamarine, and you have to look in your chart and see where is Aquarius, especially 0 to 1 degrees, because that's where Pluto is going. It's going from 29 degrees Capricorn into 0 degrees Aquarius. Now, some of the key words that I'm going to mention, I'm not going to list them all, but Aquarius has to do with futuristic technology, AI. They could be abrupt. They could be aggressive. The astrologer is under the heading of Aquarius. They could be detached, deviant, different, eccentric, electric. They could be elevated, inspired, envisioning, empowering, futuristic, freedom loving. This is all Aquarius energy, inventive, networking, outrageous, progressive, quirky, radical, rebel, scientist, shy, social, stubborn because they're fixed, truth seeking, unique, versatile, unpredictable, visionaries, and Uranus and Aquarius rule the weather. So Aquarius is known for being independent, progressive, and unconventional. They're very knowledgeable and unique. They are known for being humanitarian, rebellious, and detached. They're also very genius, super smart. Aquarians also have a strong opinion and they're not afraid to voice it and can be the know-it-alls and the nonconformists. Their views are about great problem solving. They are tremendous problem solvers. And think of all these inventors. They invented all these machines because there was a problem and a need. Okay. So remember, any comments, put them below. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe and share these videos. Now, a little bit about Pluto. As I mentioned before, it has an elliptical cycle, okay, an orbit, and it takes about 248 years to go around the whole zodiac from Aries all the way back to Aries. So, like I said, the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was about 240 something years ago. So, Pluto does not stay in the sign exactly 21 degrees every single year because its orbit is elliptical. It's not a circle. All right. So there's a little distortion there on the time factor. However, we have to understand too that Pluto retrogrades 6 months out of the year. And what that means is the energy goes forward for 6 months and then it swings backwards on the chart for another 6 months. And this is the movement as it goes around the astrology wheel. So if it hits and makes contact to points in your astrology wheel now, it probably has made contact before or will continue to make contact again because of this pendulum type energy of Pluto. If you have any questions, comment below and we'll get back to you, okay? So I'm trying to talk slowly and break it down in a logical sequence so you could understand. And I'm going to be talking quite a bit about Pluto in Aquarius because, like I said before, all the air signs, all the fixed signs, all the cardinal signs that have specific degrees, like I mentioned in the beginning, are going to be affected because it's moving out of Capricorn cardinal earth sign 29 degrees and going into an air fixed sign, which affects all the air signs and fixed signs in the chart, in your chart. Okay. So I repeat it multiple times because sometimes my students don't get it the first time. And I have to remember that I'm not talking to other professional astrologers. I'm talking to people that might not even know what a degree is and what is she talking about the degrees. There is a little bit of math involved, but that's how astrologers measure the points and the planets and their positions in your horoscope wheel. And then we make comparisons. Okay, so I digress. But now I want to get into the keywords for Pluto, and then we'll put it all together. So Pluto is like fixed water. It's we used to learn that it was like an ice cube, but that doesn't quite cut it for me. Maybe an iceberg, where you see the tip on top and then there's this massive thing below the surface. That's a better analogy. I like to liken Pluto energies as a fire hose. It's very powerful and it just transforms. So it does put out fires, but anything in its way, it will knock it down. It's also like Niagara Falls for anybody that's been to Niagara Falls or a very powerful waterfall. That water just keeps hitting that same spot. But water is very powerful. All right. And Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, which is a fixed water sign. Okay. So if you've heard any of my teachings before, I like to learn astrology with the natural wheel, which you learn the first house, which is ruled by Aries, the sign, and the planet Mars. And if you know that, then you know all the corresponding energies to Aries, Cardinal, first house, and Mars. Okay. And if you go around the whole natural wheel or zodiac and learn those three components that always go together, and there's one other component, which are aspects that go with the particular houses as we go around the wheel, but that's very advanced astrology. And I want to keep everything as simple as I can. So Pluto is intense and it's ruthless. It takes us down to the lowest level. It helps us let it go. It helps us release and get rid of what we don't need. And so there are losses involved. It could be a death because in order to have something new or to have new possessions, new beginnings, you have to get rid of the old stuff that doesn't serve you anymore. That's why it's so intense, number one, but intense number two, because it goes like the pendulum. So if one contact with Pluto on your particular natal chart wasn't enough, it will probably make multiple contacts and it might take 2, 3, 4 years. And with my experience, it never just contacts one area. It usually contacts other aspects or a pattern that you already have in your astrology chart, which will intensify it because now there are more factors involved, more planets involved. So astrology decoding has to do with the cumulative effect. You know, if there's a lot of focus in different parts of the chart, because remember, each house represents an area of life. So if you have things going on, contacts going on in your 10th house, your professional life, your career, your social status, then that's where it's going to affect the changes, irreversible changes. So I'm going to go now into my keyword sheets and I'm going to tell you some of the words, my favorite words that go along with Pluto. And I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. But remember, Pluto helps heal, but on a psychological tone, because Pluto goes underneath the surface, just like the iceberg, but it also represents things underground that are hidden, but not hidden like a Pisces, that are just, they need to be uncovered. Okay. You have to dig to get down in there. It represents the sewers. It represents creepy, crawly things. It represents death. It represents psychology. And I'm going to make sure that I didn't forget any words like abandonment and the atomic blast. Why atomic blast? Because that's when they discovered Pluto. in the sky. Remember, ancient and Hellenistic and Vedic astrology does not use the modern planets, the planets that were not seen with the naked eye. Which ones are those? Anything past Saturn was not visible in the sky, but they were discovered through telescopes. All right. And that expanded the world of astrology. But astrology is an ever expanding uh, science. And at one point, it was astronomy and astrology were together one thing. And I got this gem of a book, The Modern Astrologer, which is a bunch of articles that were put together in 1898. And they talk about things that are just unbelievable. And one day I'm just going to read out of this book and put it on YouTube so you could hear the wisdom and the knowledge of these astrologers from the 1800s. And it was illegal back then too. They couldn't perform astrology as a business. Um, they had other professions. And in the 50s and 60s, most of the great astrologers that continued with the science of astrology were psychologists, because they would put the client's information in the, in the ephemeris, and they'd look up to see where the chart data was, and then they would compare the astrology to the actual client, the patient. There's one little problem with all those books that were written by psychologists. There's a little bit of a slant because it leans towards mental illness and people that were going to therapy. So I digress a little bit, but you need to understand the big picture. I am very thorough. I like to give you as much information about a topic so you could sift and sort. And because if you're a thinker, you might say, well, wait a minute, how come they didn't do astrology? Why was astronomy and astrology separated? It's a long story, but it was. But now anyone could go into the computer, which is very much Aquarius and Gemini, it has to do with thinking and data and information, but you put that data, birth data, into the software program, and you'll get an astrology chart. Now, how accurate it is, it's questionable. If you're not using a professional astrology program, we could have some issues with the ascendant, or which house the planets are in, and maybe the moon and stuff, and the nodes, because they deal with the ascendant. So you want to make sure that you get the best possible chart that you could get. But now, in the population, there's 7 billion people on the planet. Millions of people have an astrology chart in their hand with all these glyphs, all these symbols, all these lines, different colors, in a big circle with all these little degrees and all these little hashes. And they don't know what to do with it, because they don't know where to begin to decode an astrology chart. It is extremely tedious, very Virgo, a lot of details, but it's a first time in history that anyone, and just random anybody that is not in a power position, that's not an emperor, that's not a president, that's not rich and famous, can get an astrology chart, and then they could start decoding it themselves. So people that used astrologers in the past were very powerful people of influence and money. So astrology is becoming very mainstream, which is Pluto and Aquarius. And that's why I'm very determined to put out my books and to get all the information out there for people to better understand astrology, to decode their own chart. And so when we get transits like Pluto, 0 degrees going into Aquarius, then you could just pick up your chart, look and see exactly what it's making contact to, where it's going to influence you, what to be aware of, and how to work with that energy. It's like surfing. So if you've ever seen people surf a wave, some waves are huge, some waves are flat, some waves are just perfect and you could ride it. But knowing your astrology chart will help you ride the waves of the planetary energies that you get hit with. And that's what makes for empowerment, enlightenment, okay? So Pluto is magnetism. It could be destructive. It's endings. It could be explosive. It could represent ghosts. It's tremendous power. It's also wealth. It's insecurities. It could be insanity. And remember, every planet and sign, every component in astrology it's like a coin. It has a flip side, and so it has a positive side and a negative side. How you use your energies is up to you. So you could, you could be a revengeful Pluto type person, or you could just be a powerful, helpful person. That's a great psychologist. You could be a great detective. It has to do with sexuality, sex, um, shared resources, other people's money, which has to do with any kind of banking, insurance, inheritance. That's all eighth house energies, but it's very Pluto. So, when things get kind of sticky when we start joining our partner's money, now it's not my money, it's our money, you see? And so it's a deep urge. That Pluto energy is like that all or nothing Scorpio energy, right? So it's getting needs met, and it's a lesson to let go. You will have issues if you won't let go. All right. And their financial investments. It's emotional intensity. Um, so it's even the underground. All right. So I hope that you've gotten all these keywords. Now you can look and see how this Pluto is affecting your chart. So you are, if the Pluto is affecting Aquarius at 0 degrees or Capricorn at 29 degrees, that's a direct contact. You should be feeling something. Definitely feeling it if you haven't felt it before. All right. Then the oppositions and the squares, which is the cardinal signs and the fixed signs. Cardinal signs around 29 degrees and the fixed signs around 0 degrees. You should feel something because those are action aspects where you have to do something because it's uncomfortable, because there's a need to balance, because there's friction, because there's anxiety, So these aspects, angles, oppositions, all that wording, they also have keywords that we as astrologers have to make sense of it. But it doesn't mean that it's going to be a tug of war for everybody out there. It depends on your specific chart. That's why when you're going to do forecasts, you must look at your individual chart. When they say attention, all Geminis, no, we have to look at the degrees, because if it's not impacting that particular degree, and we're talking for the air signs, it would be a 0 degrees, 0 to 1 degree. All right. But that, because it's a trine, any air signs other than Aquarius, this just may be a flow of energy that comes to you, could be internal, where you don't necessarily do anything about it. But if it is an opposition 180 degrees apart from one another, or a square, and that means any cardinal signs, then, or fixed signs, then you're going to feel it. Okay. So, Pluto will transform. And if you live long enough, you will have experienced some kind of Pluto energy in your life. All right. It doesn't always mean death, but it does mean endings and losses. Now, how big the loss is depends on how close it is to your angles and how close it is to certain planets. If it's close to your sun and your moon, that's pretty close. So if it's close to a personal planet, it'll get personal. But it also depends on the area of your life, which house it's in. All right. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed this massive Pluto in Capricorn going into Pluto in Aquarius. So we're at 29 degrees, which is an anaretic degree, another nuance of astrology that makes it more powerful. Instead of a 10-watt bulb, we're dealing with 250-watt bulb. This is strong. Okay, instead of a little strike of a match, we're looking at a bonfire, uh, you know, or in an erupting volcano, which is intense. So, but how it's going to affect you is very individual. So you may as well use the law of attraction to focus on what you want, accentuate the positive, and remember that energy flows where attention goes. So, warning, if you are one of those people that like to watch media news where it's doom and gloom, you might have a problem with this energy if it's making contact with your natal planets, points, and cusps and angles. All right. So I urge you to meditate, and especially when planets go retrograde, that is a time to meditate. But right now, Pluto is not going retrograde, it is, excuse me, moving forward. All right. Any questions? Write them in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, follow, check out our different platforms, check out our website. This is Ev Zerudakis, founder of Holistic Healing Astrology. God bless you all. Bye-bye.